Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I thought it would be fun to paint a loose watercolor of a picture with some flowers in it. And I'm going to use these watercolors. They're the Paper Fashion watercolors from American Crafts. And I'll be reviewing these soon, but I like to get a couple paintings under my belt to see how I like them. And I'm curious about these because I am such a cheapskate. I got these because they were used on Amazon. They actually were brand new. They were wrapped and everything. And I paid $16 for it. Then the next day they were like $17, like brand new. So I didn't get as good of a deal as I thought I did, but that's okay. I like these paints. But I was at Joann's and I had a 60% off coupon. The coupons are the death of me, going into a store with coupons. And I thought I would try these colored pencils. They're mechanical colored pencils. And I think they might be really nice for sketching because I think they're probably less waxy and harder, and I probably can erase them. So I just want to see how these would compare with my Colorase colored pencils, because sometimes the Colorase ones will break. So we're going to give that a try. I hope you'll be able to see my lines. I'm just going to do some really, really pale sketching, quick sketching. So hopefully I won't need to put too many lines down, and hopefully what I do you can see. But the reason I wanted to get these and review them is that there are refills. And I bought a pack of refills while I was at it, just in case they discontinue them. But you can get the refills from art supply stores online, so I don't really have to worry about not being able to get refills for these. So I mean, yeah, because they're plastic, so you wouldn't want to throw them away. You definitely would want to get the refills. And I've gotten cheap refillable mechanical pencils before that are fine. You just don't get so many colors. So we're going to give that a try. I'm also going to do the first page of a brand new sketchbook. How exciting. I really like these Arteza sketchbooks. Oh my gosh, they are very affordable. They come in multi-packs, so they're not precious. You don't have to worry about like, oh, I'm going to waste my sketchbook. I don't want to ruin it. You just go and you paint because there's so much paper for an affordable price. So I do like those. So I've got 2 recommendations and one I never even tried before. So we're going to learn about this together. Ooh, look at that. So they feel good. They feel much better in your hand than like the cheapo ones I got at the Dollar Tree, which is good. I'm going to start by doing a circle. Look how I draw it with my pinky. See how I kind of draw it with my pinky before my pencil touches the paper? You can do this with a pencil, of course. You don't have to have fancy refillable colored pencils. Basically, I wanted, oh wow, they mark really well. Okay, then this is a Fiesta Wear picture. At least I think it is. That's what I recognize it as. Fiesta Wear is a brightly colored pottery, and I just like this. This was like a pastel shade. I thought it was so pretty. Can you see that? Gosh, I hope so. Maybe if I tip it, you'll see it a little bit better. We'll get to painting real quick, so don't worry if it's not showing up real dark, because we're going to get to painting. I'm hoping that these don't feel that waxy, so I'm hoping that I won't have any issues when I go to paint. We could try erasing. This is real light, so I don't really have to worry if I can erase it. But let's try with my white plastic eraser. I always keep this handy on my table because I like to use this on watercolor paper, and this sketchbook does have watercolor paper in it. Oh yeah, hey, you know what? This is erasing just fine. Oh, I'm so pleased. Oh, great. Oh, so pleased with that. Oh, don't want to use my hands to brush that away because it is wintertime, and I just put some like really thick hand cream on before I came down here. And I don't want to have that smear of grease all over my my paper. I think what I'm going to do is very, very lightly just indicate where I'm going to want, like, let's do a nice purple daisy here. This is going to be so nice and springy. So I did the center of my daisy, right? Made it kind of dark with my purple. These actually feel really nice to draw with. And then I just kind of dotted around the outline. Okay, so keeping it real, real loose. I'm going to do one up here, but it's going to be looking up. The daisy looking up, like you can really look at stuff. We're going to do it looking up. I'll link the reference photo down below just so you can have that for your reference. We'll do one over here because it's nice to have things in 3s. There's actually, you can see another one in the reference photo kind of poking out from the back, but I want to keep it in 3s so it's not too overwhelming. In this side perspective, you get to see the center of that flower, which is real pretty. Now you can go in. Why don't we go in and put a few petals in there? The nice thing about a colored pencil versus a watercolor pencil as you're underpainting is that these lines are not going to dissolve and you're not going to lose your drawing. You can keep it light and then you can cover it up for the most part, and I of course can erase. Why don't I do that and put oh, I really like the way these feel. They're triangular. Isn't that neat? Can you see that? Oh, I hope so. I'm going to stick this little rubber stamp underneath my thing. I think that will be a little easier for you to see because you won't have so much glare on the paper. It looks real dark to me in the monitor, but so I'm hoping you can see it. So your petals are not gonna dissolve. Now, when I'm doing daisies, what I do is I kind of think of points on a compass, and I go around and I do northeast, southwest, and then I fill in. That way, I don't have my daisies kind of like with these petals all leaning in one direction, because that used to happen to me before I realized that I could just kind of space them out. And when I'm like punching holes, if I'm like bookbinding or I'm making a card and I want to make a decorative border, I want to put brads or eyelets or something, and I want them to be equidistant, I will put, you know, I'll divide up the space and divide up that space and divide up that space. And by dividing like that, I find that I can really do a better job. There's some foreshortening, so these petals on the side are longer. I can do a much better job at making it look balanced and even, and then I don't have to like throw anything away, you know, because I messed it up. So there's a little tip for you. So there we go, some daisies. That's going to really help when we paint. I think we can be looser with our paint strokes because we don't have to worry. We've got some lines there. Now I'm going to be careful not to bang these down. It sounded like I really banged that down loud, didn't it? I'm going to be careful not to bang it too much because I don't want to break the lead inside, but it feels really durable. Oh, I'm so glad I grabbed these out. I bought these a couple months ago. I was out shopping with one of my girlfriends, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna try these. And then I like kind of forgot about them. They were in my one of my two review bins, and every time I see them, it's like, oh yeah, I need to put some time in there. I'm just some like baby's breath or something, maybe lavender, something that comes off a stem that I would just kind of dab on. And I think that's really all I need. So let's get to painting. I'm just going to keep it simple with a number 6 round. This is actually a number 8 round. This is the Roy Mac Revolution Taklon. And any nice, fairly absorbent synthetic number 8 round is going to work well for you. I want to mention this is from a company in Australia. And I know it can be tricky to get supplies in Australia, so that's why I really wanted to mention that. I'm going to start with some yellow ochre from this Paper Fashion set. This is pretty. Now they might have fancy names for things, because sometimes when craft companies come out with a product, they'll call it like, you know, enchanted aquamarine, or, you know, they'll well, not this color, but, you know, they'll come up with some real cutesy you know, fantasy name for the thing. But what I do is I go by what you would customarily call the color. If you were gonna go to the art store and say, I need yellow ochre, I need ultramarine, I need, you know, that way it's just a little easier to follow along, depending, like, no matter what brand of paint you have. I didn't pre-wet my paper. I totally could have pre-wet this base. I wouldn't have pre-wet the whole thing just because I'm not planning on doing a wet into wet background. Although I could have masked off the edges and had like a really nice border. I do notice this paint's wearing down pretty fast. Actually, this reminds me so much of the Mungio paint and like the paint in the Prima and Jane Davenport palettes, which I like. I like for real loose paintings like this. I want to make this a little bit fatter, I think. I don't know if you can hear the raindrops on the bulkhead. We're having it snowed last night. I got up at 4 and let the dog out, and there was so much light fluffy. It looked like the snow that you see in the movies, that like really, really light and fluffy, like soap powder snow. It was so pretty. And then it started raining, which means it's quiet here because the guys can't work on the new edition. So I've got some quiet time, which is awfully nice. Now I'm going to lift off some detail in the center and some highlights, and I'm going to do that with actually a brush. And my brush is fairly dry, and look, I'm just going to go in there and pick up some of that color and add some shape. Wipe off the excess. And that way I can kind of mold my paint, kind of sculpt it a little bit. Now if I feel like my brush is just has too much color in it, I just rinse it and blot it. And I can go right over again and lighten it up a little bit. This is real gentle, so you don't have to worry about like pilling your paper unless you've got a real poor quality paper, and sometimes that's an issue. Like if you're working in a sketchbook that's not a watercolor sketchbook or a mixed media sketchbook, you may have some issues with this. But like this, or the Stillman and Bird mixed media sketchbook, or the I think even like the Canson XL mixed media sketchbook, which is a real bargain, I think any of those would be fine. All right, so we got a little bit of roundness to that. I really like that. Now, I kind of want to tap in just some really, really pale pink, almost like carnations. But I'm going to make sure they don't touch the edge of my vase because I don't want that color to seep in. So I'm going to take some of this pink. It looks like an opera pink. Look how bright that is. I'm going to tone that sucker down. Let's add a little bit of this neighbor color here. This looks like kind of, oh gosh, I would call it, it's not quite a crimson lake. I'll show you the swatch here. It's almost like a burgundy, but it's a little cleaner. It's just almost like a raspberry, a deep raspberry type of red. Now, at this point, if you're like, geez, I just can't control that paint, it's just too, it's too bright and transparent, because sometimes you'll have that issue where you can't thin it. If you thin it down with the amount of water you need, it just feels a little too weak. Or not weak, but it's just too watery, and maybe you can't control it very well on your paper. Let's just try this by itself first, and we'll do just, even thin down, like with that much water, it's got so much water in it, it's still really bright. So if you find that hard to control and that's brighter than you want, now keep in mind, we have a lot of water in there, so it is gonna fade more. But if you wanted to, you could go in and add some white to that. And this will also add a bit of chalkiness, but it's going to help you temper that a little bit. Oftentimes with the whites on your watercolor palettes, they're not really opaque. They're meant to be a mixing white. They're really, they're actually quite translucent, and they're designed to add to your paints to give you a little bit more control. So I'll put a little bit right there. So there you can see, just by adding that white, we just got a little bit of a softer look to it. And then you won't have that puddling issue, which could give you blooms, because the white also thickens it a little bit, so you won't have that back run issue. So I used to be like a watercolor purist, and for the most part I don't use white in my watercolor, but I don't like rule it out, because there are times when you need to tone down that color. Maybe you're doing a portrait and you just need such a pale highlight, and by adding too much water, it's just on the paper, maybe using a paper that's not as absorbent as like a cotton paper, and it's just fighting with you. Then by adding a little bit of water, adding a little bit of white rather, it will temper that paint a little bit, and it can help you out. So never say never, basically, is what I'm saying here. And there, we just filled that in. That's real pretty. I like that a lot. Now I'm going to add some pink flowers up here. I can't tell if that's, can't tell what kind of flower that is. It almost looks like a snapdragon, but I don't know. It's kind of, there's not really that much detail in it. That's actually a warmer red. I've got to do a little mixing here. I don't want that white. So let me clean my brush, get some fresh water. I have 2 jars, by the way. I have one that I clean my brush with, and then I've got one for fresh water. I always use the bigger jar for cleaning. And then if you have 2 different size jars like that, it's easy to remember. And I always put and this is personal preference, I put my cleaning one on the left and my clean water on the right. So my dirty water left, clean water right, but you might find it easier to have it the opposite way. So I'm going to take some of this red, which is more of like a pyrrole red, and take some of that burgundy color. There we go. It gives us a real good neutral. The colors on here are, with the exception of no strong blue, are pretty good for mixing, I would say. We'll see how that looks on our paper. Now again, I've got that real wet, so I don't really want to, because I have a warmer tone here, I don't really want to add any white to that, because when you add the white to the warmer color, that's where you do get a little bit more risk of getting mud. Because warmer colors tend to be a little bit more opaque. They tend to be, even though that red's pretty transparent, it's very transparent. Warmer colors do tend to mud quicker than cooler colors. That's a nice shade, though. I like that. These flowers are going to get bigger as they come down the stalk here, where you haven't painted any of the greens on that yet. I just wanted to get all these kind of floating shapes painted where they're not touching anything else that's wet currently. Give us time for our picture to dry. Oh, this is a fun one. Guys, I hope you try this. This is a really fun painting to do. I'm having a ball. Plus it's real springy looking, so it's like, whoo, just what I want to paint this time of year. And we'll do, oh, you know what? Let's just draw another little sprig over here. These are a lot drier than, say, like a Prismacolor, so it's like I keep feeling like I'm just using the plastic because it's a hard pencil, so I think, oh, I'm just using the plastic. I gotta advance some of the stuff up, and it's like, no, I've got plenty out. But you can always retract your lead by holding the end and pushing the lead in with your finger, so don't feel like like you're wasting it or anything. And that, I think I'm gonna bring some purple in, because I know I'm going to use some purple with the daisies, so I think I'll do that lavender instead of baby's breath, because I'm not doing a background, so I really wouldn't have any contrast for the baby's breath. So to make my lavender, I'm going to start off with, oh, actually, look at that, we've got a purple. I might as well start with that, and then maybe add a little bit of that kind of cobalt teal color to it. I know that's not cobalt teal, because that would be way more expensive of a palette if they use that, but that's going to knock back the chroma of that a bit and give me more of that lavender color that I want, a little softer. Just feel like I want maybe a little bit of that. There we go, a little bit of that red in there. And every time you mix colors together, especially on a student grade set, this one's pretty good, but when you go and you mix colors, the more colors you mix, the more you desaturate. Each color you add desaturates it a little bit more. In you know, for the most part. I mean, if you started with a really chalky, yucky color and you added like phthalo blue, well, yeah, that's going to increase the saturation. But for the most part, you know, what you start off with, it gets weaker with each passing color. I have this lavender color, but lavender's more of a spike. I don't know what I was thinking. That's not really what I'm painting here. Unless we've got a bunch of lavender, that's what we'll say. Got a bunch of lavender. Plus, I like having that contrast with the yellow. Having yellow and purple together look real nice. I'll now have bigger dabs as I get down the stock a little bit more. Oh, these colors these are a joy to paint with. I just reviewed some paints that were not very joyful, and I mean, it's just like, ah, these are so much better than those. Okay, I feel like, you know, I should have another little kind of sprig sticking out over here. Just having things in threes is nice. And I think I'll do my shadow under the vase in a very similar color, but let's see, is that dry yet? I'm going to hit this with a heat tool real quick first, just to make sure I'm not going to have any back run or fuzzy edges. But this paper dries pretty quick. I'm really glad I paused the camera because I had a huge sneeze right after I started drying the paper. Okay, I'm going to just do a very simple shadow. I am going to add some water and just kind of fan it out. Okay, so basically I am painting, because your paint's only going to go where your water is, so I am just painting water as far as I want that shadow to blend, and then I'm going to add the shadow real close to my object here. I think I probably will end up using a little of this indigo color somewhere, so I'm going to add that into my shadow mix. So I'm adding the violet, the indigo, add a little bit of that blue to knock down the chroma, and this time I'm going to add a little bit of that red that we used earlier, because that will help gray it out a little bit more. And I'm going to add a little bit of the yellow ochre we used, because that will help. Oh, that's too much. Well, that yellow ochre is strong, because that helps gray it out. Yes, I could just use that black, but I really prefer not to. So do you see how this is getting like desaturated? The more color I add, the more dull and desaturated it gets. That's what I was talking about. Now this is what I want, kind of like a grayed lavender, grayed purpley gray color, so it can work with my vase here as a complementary shadow. I might add some spatter to this. I'm not sure. The problem with adding spatter on the first page of your sketchbook is you get like the inside cover usually coated. I mean, yeah, you could put a piece of paper down, but do I ever think to do that? No, I just end up just spattering everything, including my entire table. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what it needs. Sometimes it's fine just as it is. Now, I'm going to clean my brush off. I want a little more color in that shadow. Add a little bit of that in there. Maybe even a little bit of my pinks. And then I'm going to clean and blot my brush and just kind of drag the edge a little bit. Clean it, blot it, then drag on the edge to just help guide it out to a nice soft blend. My cat's been purring so loud down here today. I think she likes the lazy rainy days without the noise. I know my dog does. There, I like that shadow. It's kind of got a little more interest in it than just gray, you know. Okay, I think I'm gonna you know, I do want to keep, so I'm gonna clean up this because I don't think I'll use that. That was kind of like a too much paint situation. I do want to keep that because I think I might use some of those shadows again. And now I think I'm going to add some greenery. Now we are going to have to mix some greens because the green that comes here is kind of like a green gold or a azo green, which is pretty, but it's just not the color we need. I'm going to clean up that pan a little bit. I'm going to add some of this kind of cobalt teal color just because the other situation, the other blue I have isn't really, it's going to be too dull on its own, and then I'll add some of this, of the indigo. So see, that's real dark. I do need some dark green, so that's alright. And then over here, I'm going to take my leftover paint, going to add some more of this. That's my only complaint with this palette. I think I would remove probably the black and add like probably like an ultramarine blue, because that's kind of cool, and that one's even kind of cool. That's almost like between a Prussian and an indigo, so if I had an ultramarine, it would really enhance how much I could mix. So that would be my biggest issue with this palette. It's not to do with the paints, it's to do with the color selection. But that, I mean, there's 3 reds for crying out loud. Do we need both those cool reds? Little things. Not a deal breaker or anything, but I gotta say it. Okay, and I will. Well, I'll be doing my review on that, and you can tune back for that if you're looking at getting these paints. Ooh, that's a pretty color, though. I do like that. I think if you're going to have a limited palette, and I understand there's so many, like, 12 sets out there that have the basic colors, so, I mean, it would be, I guess, be pretty foolish for a company to try to compete with, like, a basic 12 set from another company, so they do their own colors, but if that's the only colors you have to work with, you want to make sure you have a nice variety. So basically, that's what I'm saying there. Not, you know, there's room in the middle. You could actually, it's this nice big gap in the middle. You could put a couple half pans down there, and that's usually what I'll do. I'll just, you know, grab a couple half pans and put those colors that I feel like it needs down the center. Oh, that's too bold. I don't like that. I actually kind of wish I did that and get that colored pencil. That's alright. I can blot that off and revisit that. Now with this darker color, let's see if that's dark enough to do some little leaves in here. I think it is. You can switch to a smaller brush if you feel like you can't get the detail that you want. Be careful not to lay my hand on that wet shadow color. Kind of want to paint around some of these daisies, so I don't have to worry about it when I go in with the purple paint. And even though it doesn't show it in the reference photo, I think I would like just a couple of the petals kind of going over the edge. Take your time and have fun. That's what I'm doing. I know a lot of times I do try to rush a little bit so that it doesn't take too much of your time to watch, but you're having fun. Why rush it? You know, you're doing this for fun. You're doing this as a pastime, as something you're passionate about and you enjoy. Why would you rush it? I like to make leaves too. It's a great way to practice your brush control as well. Let's do a couple over here. Press down when you want a thick part of your leaf and lift up when you want a thin part. I'm putting way more leaves than the reference photo has, but that's alright. The reference photo is just to give us a guide, just give us some ideas, then we can do our own thing. Okay, that's pretty good for now. Maybe just a few other little sneaky little green bits in here. Fill it in, because you want to have that contrast. You have all these nice light, fresh, bright colors. It's nice to have a little bit of contrast. Okay. So the daisies are purple. We're going to take some of that violet. That's pretty much what we want for the petals, just kind of watered down. And you're just going to make sure that you're not painting next to something that is still wet. Oh, I might want that a little bit stronger. Yeah, I want that a little stronger, I think. And try to just avoid the centers if you can. I mean, they're going to be a different shade of purple, so it doesn't really matter that much, but if you can avoid the centers, it will help. I'm going to wait a minute before I do that portion. But I'm going to take some indigo and violet and right there, because I can get into that center without messing up. And the others, I can also do this tiny little center part here without bothering anything else. And then I'm going to go back in with my violet here. Practice turning your wrist and turning the whole brush. Don't try to paint everything from the same perspective. I actually like how that's kind of blurring in together. That's kind of cool. I think I'll add some pinks to that actually too. Maybe some of that red. Some up there as well. It's your flowers, you can add whatever you want. If you don't like that red, don't do it. I'm going to try to get those in there now. Hopefully it's dry enough. And if not, they'll just be a little bit looser of an effect, and that's fine too. Okay, now if you want some detail on the vase, there are some like kind of ridges in the glazing in like the pottery. So I think I will mix up, there's a brown in there, but I haven't used the brown yet, so I don't really want to use that. I'm going to use what I have and just kind of mix. I'm going to take what I've got on my palette. Boy, that yellow ochre is so strong. That's real nice. I think that color will work just fine. Now, I don't want to lose the tip of the brush, so I'm blotting excess moisture from the belly of the brush, so I'll still have the nice sharp tip, but I won't end up with too much paint. And I'm going to paint some shadows. They're real subtle because they're on yellow. Yellow can be very difficult to shadow, and when I pick up color, I'm just getting it on the tip. And my shadow will go right up next to where I lifted, actually. Because you've got a shine there. When you have things shiny, a lot of times you have your shadow right next to your highlight. I had to look at my reference to, I don't know, can remember how far that line would go down. There's kind of just some concentric lines here. I'm not sure if I like this or not, but it'll fade a little bit as it dries, so hopefully it will be fine. Oh, I'm not liking that, but oh man, I don't like that. Maybe I'll like it in a minute when I look back at it. Maybe it will look alright, but right now, bummer. Don't like it. Grrr. Let's add a little bit of dark on the bottom there. That is a bummer when you do something like that at the end of your painting, but if you don't try it, you'll never know. So it's always good to try, even if you're afraid. Even if you mess it up, you're going to learn more from that messed up painting than you are from the perfect one. Alright, so let's go about fixing that. I'm going to smooth out that shadow first, because that's nothing to write home about as it is. We'll soften that a little bit. Okay. So I am just going to soften that. Grab some yellow ochre on its own and paint over that to mute those awful, shaky, non-concentric circles that I managed to make. So I'll basically work over it until I faded it enough that it doesn't offend me anymore. You're probably thinking, Lindsay, you're just going to spatter it anyway. Don't worry about it. My highlight back there a little bit. Well, you know, I think I will do a little spattering actually. With some purple. And, oh, will I remember to put something over? I'll put this over the... I really want to get something on that vase. Because it won't show up so much if I've got a spatter on it. That's alright, that's better. I don't mind that so much now. I think I do need some bigger spatters though. I'm not going to get them from this unless I kind of just do water, get some bigger ones going, and then I add the color to them. And dab them out, make some bigger ones. Also nice spatters in the shadow too, and I love shadow spatters. I'll do a little bit of that blue in the green. I mean, it's the first page of a sketchbook. It's like, I hate it when I mess that up because it's like, ugh, that's the first thing I want to see every time I open that sketchbook. Do you guys get that? Or is it just me? Oh yeah, and I want, not baby's breath, but I like that like kind of light, airy stuff up there. Let's see this color mixed with that kind of cobalt teal color. It's alright for shadow. Now I'm just going to use my brush to integrate it into the bottom of that shadow a little bit. Get some of that shadow color back because I didn't clean it off my palette because I had a feeling I was going to need it again. Alright, let's see. Oh, I want to do some yellow spatters. So I'm going back. I'm only using colors I've already used because hey, we got a lot going on here as it is. We don't need to be introducing any other chaos to the mix. And I also will take some of that yellow ochre. It's a little wet though. I'm going to blot my brush off and actually grab it from the pan. And do a little bit of color in there. There's going to be some purple too, but there's just this little like yellow accents that I want to get. Actually, there's quite a bit more yellow in this one. So I might as well get that in now. And I could take some indigo and put some darker shadows. And that way you can kind of carve out different shapes. Negative. So this is actually negative painting. When you're going in and you are painting around stuff. You're going to find it more, this dark, more inward. It's a little more concentrated with flowers. You get a little bit more stuff going on. Especially on top of your leaves, underneath where they overlap other petals. And you can drag some of that down and put veins on your leaves as well, so it doesn't stop abruptly. Feel a little bit of transition there. Alright, I'm going to let this dry. I think I'm actually going to let it dry naturally and then come back. I think that I might want to blot up some of this down here because that's going to take a long time to dry and it's going to give me some really crazy cauliflowers that I might not want, but I love how the colors are just blending together down there right now. Got some really interesting color play that I like a lot. Also, I want to try to protect the next page in the sketchbook a little bit. And it's getting a little crazy. Actually, a little more pink in there, so I'm just going to force a little pink into that splatter. I rarely just take the splatter as it comes. I'll usually kind of force it a little bit. To make sure I have a good representation of different colors. And sometimes I'll tip the paper so I have like have the mixing and the movement in there that I want in case my paper, sometimes you'll get like and it seems weird, it doesn't seem like it would do this, but if you've got too much water on there, it doesn't let the paint move. The paint just kind of gets trapped in the surface tension of the water and then it doesn't go anywhere. And sometimes you need to go in there and just kind of nudge it a little bit. I always find colors like this, like colors like cobalt teal or similar to this, these kind of like sedimentary colors, and they could be sedimentary because they're chalky, or they could be sedimentary because they have pigments in them that are heavy, but I find them to work really well in these kind of wet into wet splashy areas because they'll stay where you put them more, and then the more transparent dye colors will move more, so you can really kind of play with that. I'll get some of these splashes onto the vase as well, because I saw I had some there and I like that. I think that looks real pretty. Now, if you don't like this, You don't have to do it. If you were like, I was with you there, Lindsay, till you started putting lines on that vase and then splashing stuff on it, then you've lost me. Don't do it then. Your art is your art, and it doesn't need to, it shouldn't look like my art, right? It should look like your art. Especially if you don't like something that I'm doing. If you like what I'm doing, and then go ahead and do it. But if you don't like it, then there's not a reason in the world you should follow along and do it. All right, we're gonna let that dry. I'm gonna have a little lunch, and we'll come back and finish it up. Okay, I took a little break, and I'm really pleased with how the splashes here dried. I love the color mixing. I love that there's no mud. It's really looks nice. I think I'm going to switch to a smaller brush just because this one holds so much water, and I'm just going to grab a couple smaller ones from my bucket over here, the Mimics. And I'm going to sharpen up a few of the edges, not all of them, just a few of the shadow edges on my vase. Let off the extra there. I'm just going to take some of the, mixes that I have. I don't really want to introduce anything new at this point. We've got a good range of colors already, so there's not really any need to do that. Everything I do from here on out is going to be pretty minor. Got a fresh towel in case I do need to blot something. And these shadows are just kind of giving a little bit of stability and weight to the bottom of the vase here. It's not really doing a heck of a lot, just helping out a little bit. And then I am going to make kind of like actually I've got a pretty good color here. This kind of pinky mud. I'm going to take some of the violet, mix it into that yellow ochre, take a little bit of the red. But what I'm going for is kind of like a potter's pink color. I really like the colors in here. It's an interesting collection of colors, and it's very well, Paper Fashion is a line, and so the artist that pulled these colors together has a very strong design sense and preferences. So it wouldn't be, my preference for a limited palette, but it's like a fun, it's like going on vacation. It's a fun little palette to try. And I'm going to grab some of the violet on its own. Let me see if that's dark enough. Let's see. We'll see if it is. Just want to kind of go around some of these petals. Just add some little lines and shadows to kind of divide the petals up a little bit. You could do this with colored pencils if you wanted to as well. Adds a little movement, adds a little design, adds a little structure. Then I want to add a little bit of shadow onto those petals. I'm going to take some of that bright red, just a little bit of the burgundy-ish color, a little of the brighter red, some water, and I'm just going to add some darker splotches of color. Don't mind the water pump. Actually, I don't know if that will pick up on camera. It seems like it's not as loud as it used to be. But if it is, sorry about that. Let's mix up a little bit more of that. It kind of ran out. The colors are real strong. I would much rather have colors that are strong versus colors that are weak, because you can always weaken them. You can always add water. You can always add white if you need to, if they're just way too vibrant. But you can't make them brighter if they're not. Right, and I don't think I'm going to do anything else to the stems on the lavender because the green selection is a little bit lacking because of the lack of good mixing. Well, maybe I'll do a little bit there because of the lack of a good mixing blue in here, but I think I could probably just maybe with this tiny brush go in and put some kind of darker strokes in there. All right, I'm going to call this done. I'll sign my name when it's all dry, but there you have it. This was a lot of fun. I hope you paint along using the supplies you have at home. Please give me a thumbs up before you go. I'll leave the reference photo link down below as well as the supplies I used. Thanks for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.